Oh, hey friends, I'm recording this on my phone in a elevator lobby of a hotel because I got to speak for a company that wanted to give their employees a pep talk. That's apparently something I get to do now that turns out I'm great at because I kind of get to do what I wish I would have had when a company goes through a merger or an acquisition. And we talk about the grieving period and taking on a new set of company values and a new group of employees coming in and making them feel welcome, because I got to tell you, I never got that. And I went through 2 acquisitions and they were bumpy AF. That if it's echoey, I apologize, but it's still me. This episode is with Carmen Pizarro. She let me practice saying her name a bunch of times. This woman is incredible. This woman I met in Austin. From the moment I met her, she blew my hair back with how not only fabulous she is, she's incredibly well dressed and just like so confident in just the way that she walks. I'm 6'3", so everybody tends to kind of like look at me everywhere I go just because they're like, what is happening? She's taller than the average man. Mari's just like, I'm having this new experience where women are actually nice and they're kind and they're supportive. And Mari's one of those women in my circle now who I'm just so lucky to call upon when I make content or when I want to have come on the show, to who's a deeper expert in something or can just add some color to it. And she and I had so much fun talking about the HR metrics that you guys have been asking about. She's got like 32 years of experience in HR, so she knows her stuff. And I brought her on to talk about the metrics that matter, that everyone should be focusing on, because I know there's a lot of confusion there. We talk a lot about the blog posts you might see sometimes about like, here's 30 metrics to know. And she says, no, you need to learn like 3 to 4. It's turnover, time to hire, and cost per hire. But the episode is so long and it's worth a listen because she talks a lot about how you need to make yourself uncomfortable and the importance of forcing yourself to learn data and having conversations with executives and not being one of those HR leaders who hides as someone everyone loves. Because at some point, your executive's going to want to know what you bring to the table because they want data, they want revenue, they want to know what you're doing and how you're growing the business. So a lot of why you can't sleep at night, wondering about your job security, has a lot to do with the lack of transparency and your what to measure, why, and how to talk about it in a way that makes sense to the executive to earn their respect and get a seat at the table. She says a couple things, but I just want to make sure you catch the parts too where she talks about if you report to the CFO, if HR ever reports into the CFO, the business is losing. I kind of already knew that, but she has a really very smart way of putting it. Mari has a really interesting job that you'll hear about. She's basically brought in to evaluate HR leaders and decide if they're the right fit for the organization or if, there's some training that needs to be done. And her stories, though, are everything from many industries. You'll hear some pharmaceutical examples. You'll hear some examples with frontline employees. But no matter your company size, she says the stories still stand. And they're all cautionary tales because even if you're an HR team of 1 or if you're in a smaller organization, your problems become more visible. So I really enjoyed speaking with her, and I hope you guys enjoy the episode. And now I'm going to stop being a weirdo talking in an elevator lobby. Hi, Mari.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good. I'm so glad you said yes to come on the show. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I remember sitting on a couch with you, 3 weeks ago?
Not long ago. Yeah. Making this happen so quick. I love it.
We were just sitting on this couch at this co-working space, oh my gosh, talking about metrics and getting through to executives and driving the business forward by being able to speak the language of executives and why it's so important to do this and that. And so I said, you just have to come on the show because you were saying so many smart things that I wanted my listeners to hear. So could you tell everyone just briefly a little bit about what you do and how you help businesses essentially, in my understanding, make sure that their HR leader is driving the business forward?
Yes, so I am the founder and principal at Whole Leadership Systems. That is a boutique consulting firm. And we have 2 pillars of the business. One is, CHRO fractional services. And companies call me when the HR leader or the HR department is not working out.
Define working out.
So when they call me, it's because the CEO who's making the call really needs a business partner. I'm thinking really every one of my clients is the CEO that I would work for. They really want a business partner in HR. And yesterday I had this call with one CEO and he was telling me, Mari, we are 300% in compliance with all New Jersey law. That's it. That's all this person brings to the table. Full compliance. And I need a business partner and I need to understand how are we spending our money and I need to understand what they bring to the table. And he said, and I know it's way more than compliance and compliance is good, but I'll be fine with 100% compliance. not only the leader is, maybe it's not the right fit for them. So they call me when they feel that there's more to be done, more to be said, more to be spent or saved. And their HR person is not being an entrepreneurial partner.
Sounds like the executive doesn't feel like they're on the same page.
Definitely they're not. And there will be an executive who does not value HR as a business partner.
Right.
And all they want, that would kill me if it was me, right, is that compliance person. So that person who's there, which people think sometimes that what I do is rough, because I evaluate the person pretty quickly. I know if it's a right fit. I've been doing this for 32 years. And then we roll out the red carpet out of the organization to an organization that values what they do.
Right. Well, and like in any business, there can be underperforming leaders. Mm-hmm. You can bring in someone to evaluate your marketing, your chief marketing officer. That's where a lot of money can be wasted with no results. A lot of pipeline, but nothing converts.
Exactly.
Your sales leader, a lot of, not closing deals, but next quarter, we need more AEs, we need more BDRs, we need to invest. We don't have enough people. Any leader at any level should be evaluated if their function or if the value that they're perceived to be bringing isn't happening in the eyes of the executive. That's within their purview of being the executive. The CEO is to make sure the business is growing, is optimizing, and is on its path to long-term scalable growth. So yes, it sounds harsh, but this could happen to any leader in the business, and it should for a company to be healthy.
And I say it sounds harsh, but I have had people call me after I do that to thank me because they were dying a little bit every day in a job that was not the right fit.
Yes.
And they typically find the right fit. So that's part of what I do. So I go in, help the team secure a new leader, transition, and then I evaluate through metrics the business of human resources. But I have a business mentality, right? If the CEO does not see HR as a business partner, I'm not the right person to do that job.
Right. You can't completely change how someone sees an HR role 100%. Overnight.
No.
Does that happen to you? Where you see that and you're like, we're not going to.
Absolutely. Regardless of the money. Because we're going to kill each other, or we're going to something bad's going to happen, or they're going to fire me, or I'm going to fire them.
Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Can I ask, just at top of your head, what is something an executive would say where you're like, oh, you don't get it?
Oh, that HR needs to report to legal or finance.
Why
they don't have a seat at the table. I have spoken with executives that truly believe that HR, no. Go take care of the people, make sure they're happy, which is all BS and blah, blah. And let us make the business decisions.
Go take care of the people, but the people who drive the revenue, don't be in the room with us while we're making decisions about.
It's not needed. You'll be wasting your time. I mean, let me tell you, these are not assholes. These are people that truly believe that.
Do you think
they've told me to my face, we don't want you to waste your time. I'm like, what the?
Is it a generational thing, or have you seen this?
No, I've seen it. You know what? I don't believe anything is a generational thing.
Okay. Is it industry specific? Are there patterns there?
It's person specific. It's the same way you see an a-hole. Is it generational? No, there's young a-holes and there's old ones, or narcissists, or they're everywhere, right? I've been in a lot of industries, and every once in a while I find a person, and you know what is it? That they haven't seen the right HR. They haven't seen, they don't know.
You said this to me on the couch. If you've never seen the color red, how do you describe it or know what you're even seeing when you do see it?
So I do try to describe the color, but if they've never seen it, they have to see it. And because I'm in the business of selling my business to them, so that they hire me, sometimes those conversations are not even worth it. It would be better that they find the right fit for them, or that the person in HR, and something I sometimes think about serving the HR community from how do you move from this victim mentality? I don't have any resources. I'm the employee's friend. I'm not here to make business decisions. I'm just HR. There's a lot of HR. I'm HR. I'm HR at heart. I've always been in HR. And there's a part of me that does not like HR. I've seen people look at me different when I say I'm a CHRO, or, I'm executive in HR. I'm an HR leader. However I say it. Why do you think change their faces? Oh, you're the one who talks to people. Oh, you're smart. How can you be talking to people all day?
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow. They say things like, interesting. You know what that means?
Right.
Like, oh, I never thought you'd be in HR. You're more like a business. I'm like, exactly. That's why I'm in HR.
Okay. Listen, everyone. HR is what Mary and I have talked about a lot offline, and what we really want to convey today too. is the value you bring to an organization. And reframing in your own mind. You are not just HR. You are not the qualitative side of the people and, oh, I'm having a bad day. Oh, my manager was mean to me. You are the heartbeat of the organization, and that you, with data, yes, the qualitative part of taking care of the people and being armed with the language of speaking to your executive in a way that gets their respect. That is how you unlock that big, beautiful HR career that you've always wanted. It is possible to get an executive to start to see your value, slowly turn the ship when we're going to talk about metrics maybe in a minute, but you need to learn how the executives think. Absolutely. And they're thinking about growing the business, and you have to blend that with your love for people. But you can't hide in your love for people for too long.
You know what is super empowering? An HR department who teaches their leaders to take care of their people. Mm-hmm. That part of taking care, of course I love taking care of people. I love that part and I don't want to discount it. But when it falls in HR, it's actually futile. Like, I can hear all your problems, but I'm not your supervisor.
Exactly. And what a waste of time.
For both of us.
Yes.
I mean, if you have a complaint, that's a different thing. But
sure.
The HR department who's there to be your friend, and you can go there and we'll keep everything confidential. I'm saying things and you guys are in HR, you know the confidentiality and all of that. But you know what I mean. The employee goes to you, they spit their brains out. They give you all these complaints and then they're like, but don't do anything. It's confidential. Right. You're my friend. So how are you going to teach the supervisors to be good supervisors so that they can take care of the employees? And if you're one HR, if you're a small HR department, or even if you're a big HR, it doesn't matter. You're going to have a client group assigned to you. If you have 100 people, how the heck do you hear them all? Mm-hmm. You're going to fail, and your inbox is going to be full of those people who want to talk to you because they feel good when they talk to you, but then they go back to a supervisor that don't know what they're doing. And what are you doing? That's not our job.
I think a lot.
That's EAP.
Right. AIP, what's that?
Employee Assistance Program. Most companies have that. Pick up the phone. There's a psychologist on the other side.
You are not the psychologist. You are not the good cop.
Or the bad cop.
I think a lot of my listeners come to me with the same problems, and they're all related. They don't have a big enough team. They don't have enough budget to do anything, and they have no time or bandwidth. But all of this is related to being able to speak to your executive, to ask for budget, to ask for headcount, to reposition yourself as someone who needs a seat at the table of the executive leadership conversations, even if you're not on the executive team. But when you're getting interrupted with employees all day and all their problems, like you were just saying, that's why you can't sleep at night, because you don't have any time to look at data or think about this. And I'm so glad you're listening to this episode for that reason. We need to get your managers to be an extension of you. If you're getting interrupted all day with everyone's questions, something's wrong with your intranet, your onboarding, or the way that you're relaying information to your managers, because they spend so much more time with your employees. And like I said on a recent LinkedIn Live, 70% of disengagement is driven by the manager, not you. So why are they coming to you and circumventing the whole dynamic that is supposed to be a psychologically safe relationship with their manager that you kind of have to train them on? But you need to create more room for yourself. You can't have fire drills all day. You're going to die early. I'm telling you, like, that's just too much stress.
Well, I tell my clients to die a little bit every day. So you said something so important, and I'm still on the half. Let me tell you the other half of what I do in my business. The other half is executive coaching. Down, boom. Mm-hmm. Moving on, because this is the juicy part. You said something very important. I don't recall ever speaking with an HR person who says I'm fully staffed. I'm understaffed. I don't have the time. All of these things. When companies hire me to go and do an assessment, what I find is two things. It's not about resources. It's about resourcefulness. And nobody can tell me any metric. They don't know how they're using their time. They believe that metrics are a waste of time and it takes them too much time to fill out. I mean, to have metrics, you have to stop and fill out something. Either
and think.
A spreadsheet and you have, or use a system, or you have to think and you have to look at the data. So obviously, if you're inundated with employee complaints all day long, or benefits problems, or but whatever it is, right? You know what I'm talking about. How the heck do you have time for that? So my assessment is lack of resourcefulness, because there's a lot of weight on your shoulders trying to lift up an organization that has inadequate leadership, managers that don't know how to take care of their employees, so on and so forth. Long as, hiring processes, high turnover. And these are the metrics that will allow you, and when I talk about you, I'm talking about you, HR person. You need to understand how your department adds value to the organization before you can tell others how you add value, or before you can ask for an additional headcount.
And you have to believe it. You have to not only know what to say, you have to believe it. We're talking maybe even manifestation here, folks.
Yeah. 100%.
You have to believe in yourself, otherwise nobody will. Speaking this into the world and to your executives, you have to really go all in. Otherwise, people will see through your insecurity. They can sniff it out in a second.
They do.
So, Mari, you're someone who embodies this confidence of speaking with executives and working with HR leaders to train them up. You have had so many sets and reps, like in the gym, so much repetition with getting comfortable with who this leader you've become. How long did it take you to get here? And where does this confidence come from? And were you ever unconfident or insecure yourself?
Absolutely, I was insecure, uncomfortable. I'm an introvert, and people would say, oh, you're not, you don't like to talk to people. So people tell you things, sometimes good intentioned, that mess you up. Especially
For years. I was told I talked too much.
From my mom to my first boss, right? You don't like to follow rules, things like that, But I'm going to be honest, I've always, a little bit of me, always believed in myself. Not 100% of me, a little bit of me. Maybe it was 25% at the beginning. I knew more or less, even though it was blurry, that I wanted to make a difference for real. I learned not long ago, and I was doing this when I was younger, do not wait for the confidence to strike. It's not going to strike.
Oh, no.
You know how you get more confident every day? Taking action. Mm-hmm. And that action might be a mistake. I look back, I'm like, why wasn't I fired? I'm not also going to say you have to, let fear go. No, you do it with a fear. So once I understood that by taking action, I will see if the action was fruitful, if it was a mistake, learn from it, apologize when I had to, not always, always have to apologize if I had to, and learn from it. Mm-hmm. I tell my clients, my executive coaching clients, you are learning for your next job. Mm. And then they're in their next job, you are learning. They come back, they're like, oh my God, I did this thing and it backfired. Great, learning. What did you learn? And how are you going to make sure that doesn't happen again? If you don't fail by taking action, how the hell are you going to learn?
Yep.
So that repeatedly, even if it's one courageous act a day, and by courageous, it could be small, will build your confidence. That is the rep in the gym. That is the rep. Mm-hmm. You cannot go to the gym 3 months and then not go and say, oh my God, the gym is not working.
Right.
So this is a lifetime practice.
Sets and reps with setting boundaries with employees, with practicing public speaking when you're uncomfortable, and demanding a section of your all hands, because if your people aren't hearing from you, they don't feel like they have representation. If you're uncomfortable with public speaking, you have to push yourself. You have to be in front of your people and they need to see you. There's lots of ways, like Mari said, to push yourself.
Yeah. And a lot of those things that you just said, Christy, what I want you guys to do, let's say it's the all hands meeting and you don't have a space and you're going to demand your space. Ask yourself first, what's my intention? Mm-hmm. What do I want to get out of being there? Mm-hmm. What do I want to give? What's important in this moment, depending on the situation? Always, I ask myself that every single day.
I think HR speaking in the all hands, and I'm curious if you agree, is one of your very important chances to remind everyone, hey, I'm here to deliver a great employee experience for all of you. And, we have either an upcoming survey or we learned this in a survey. And I just want you to know that I really appreciate your feedback. When it's negative, you're training everyone to trust you and that you need this feedback to do your job. Whether you're talking about a survey or a new solution, it's just another chance to say in front of everyone, my job is to deliver a great employee experience for you. No company's perfect, but you get to tell them what you're there for. You don't open and say, hi, I'm everyone's psychologist. I'm everyone's psychotherapist and assistant for the sake of you can't find your 401k, event manager. Stop planning the company holiday party. I hate when HR does that, but some of them like it. But the all hands is a great chance to remind employees why you work there. And you work there on behalf of them, but also like you are the enabler and the go-between between the executives and the people. You're like the ultimate revenue driver if this is fluid.
Yes, exactly. And that's where metrics come handy.
Yes.
And you can talk to employees about that in a very regular language. You don't even have to use the word metric. You can even say, hey guys, we had people leaving in the first 3 months, and I know this affects the operations. We've implemented a new onboarding process, and now 50% of the people that were leaving are staying and are happy employees, and that's helping you in your job. Right. See, now you're talking like very normal. Yes. What else do you think we should do to help and have that conversation? We're going to send you a survey or whatever. They need to know that you're taking action, and they need to understand that you're running the business of HR. Mm-hmm. And you need to understand that first for yourself before you speak up in those all hands meeting.
You said something really important too, though, is don't say turnover. Don't use your acronyms to employees. They have no idea what that means. They might.
Some of them might, but it's always good. You can say turnover. What I mean is how quick people leave the company.
And when you said that, I said yes. Yeah. Talk to the level of a 10th grader. That's what I always say in the all hands when it's full of EBITDA and the CEO's going off. I'm like, the employees they don't know what this means. Talk about how much money we made. We touched on metrics there and we've dodged it. We've been like skirting it, probably because I'm so excited to go in. So my audience has asked me for years, Christy, what are the top metrics and how do I build a dashboard and what software should I use even? And that's obviously multiple directions we could run in. But generally, what are the most important metrics, no matter the industry, no matter really the company size? Like if someone is just getting started with like, Christy, Madi, I believe you. I want to get better with numbers and data. Where should I start? What are my top couple metrics?
I love that. I want to say that in preparation for this podcast, I did some research and I found reputable websites talking about 35 metrics.
Right?
17, another one. I'm like,
they're
what
doing
are
it for
we
SEO? They're trying to just
doing?
They're trying to catch all of them. So when you Google it, you land on their landing page.
I'm like, these people are not even in HR. That's ridiculous. So first of all, one metric is it's better, way better than zero metrics. So human resources metrics are going to guide you and eventually the organization in the decision-making strategy around people, how many positions to hire, etc. And when you get more and more comfortable with the 1 or 3 metrics that I'm going to share with you, then you can start talking to executives in a business way.
Start small.
Exactly. So the first metric that has given me personally the most return on investment is turnover. How fast people leave the company. So a lot of the CEOs that I work with, everybody wants low turnover because at some point in life, in the 40s and 50s and 60s, maybe even in the 70s, the health of a company was measured by how long the employees stayed, and they will stay forever. And the seniority was weighted very heavily in the health of the organization, not only here in the US, but also in other European companies I've worked for. Now, today, that's different. A low turnover, like zero, really low turnover could mean that a bunch of low performers are staying in the job because you don't have a way to deal with low performance, for example. That's why I love turnover so much, but I don't want to say high turnover is really bad, low turnover is really good. Turnover will give you a percentage. It doesn't matter what it is. At least it's a starting point to go and investigate. What I really hate? The HR professional who sits in a meeting and they're like, by the way, the average turnover in the US as of yesterday, 37% is crazy.
Jesus.
People are jumping ship. This is the era of frustration. I don't like this. I leave. I move. So aiming for 10%, it's crazy. Where are you getting your data? Are you informed of the trends? And the trends in HR change every year. So 37%. And I have CEOs tell me, I want to be at the 12%, which is a metric for many years ago. All right, what do you want out of that metric? You have the metric. So I was saying, I hate HR people who sit in front of a group and they go through their blah, blah, blah. We went from 35% turnover to, 17. And we're celebrating this percentage of, and that's how they go to the all hands and they talk to employees. Employees are what? Mm-hmm. This is a real story. I was in that situation, listening to that. Then I met with the senior vice president of HR. And I said, so what happened that you were able to do that so quickly? It was less than a year she was able to reduce. And she was super proud of it. And what they did is they gave lower performer employees more opportunities for training and to perform. And that's not a bad thing. But, if you're not performing after all the training in the first 90 days, so they had a policy of the probatory period. So they took that out. Of course, there's less turnover.
Uh-huh. I've never seen a low performer become a superstar.
Never.
Ever.
Oh, yeah.
It never happens.
That's another whole episode.
That's kind of what you were just saying, though. Is like you can't invest in those people or...
So if you have a solid onboarding. And so the problem in that company was the onboarding process. But the Band-Aid solution was like, we're being too harsh. Let's eliminate the probatory period, which you can do as HR. Make that decision. People stay longer. You know what it was happening? It was taking longer to fire people that were not performing. You know that the effect in productivity was they were spending 40% more time in producing, and this was a manufacturing global pharmaceutical company, in producing the drug, because now it's not 3 months probation period, now it's 6 months.
Oh.
And
So
now I have, as a supervisor, I have to spend time with him or her or do body systems and create new training. In the meantime, I'm not producing what I need to produce. So the cost per unit went through the roof, but the turnover was low.
So are you saying
So-
you need to look at revenue and pair it with other data to be like, this is a good thing that turnover is lower? To
It
see, like,
depends
did
on the
it-
situation, right? It depends on the situation. So high turnover for it was not high, 25% turnover for this particular organization. What's the right amount of turnover? They had some things in the onboarding process that were broken in those first 3 months that we had to fix. And the cost per unit of producing a unit, which is directly related to EBITDA and revenue and all those things, went down once we fixed that. And turnover went up. We instituted a program where the employees needed to be certified, and a lot of them were failing. So that led me to go and look to my second favorite metric, the hiring process, time to hire and cost of hire.
Okay. Will you define EBITDA before you tell us about those two? I know EBITDA, but for the listeners?
It's what you make in your sales before taxes.
Right. It's your revenue before taxes.
Yeah, before you take the taxes out.
I'm going to be training you guys on EBITDA. There's EBIT, EBITDA. The acronym just progressively gets shorter depending on if it's before taxes, after taxes, and lots of other situations. But
It's the same with your paycheck, right?
yeah,
It's the same.
that's a good way to put it. So tell us about these next two metrics.
Time to hire and cost of hire. So I discovered in this part, just to continue with the same story, that time to hire was short and cost of hire was low, which every CEO wants to hear that. When HR loses influence and credibility is when you're doing that at the expense of finding the right candidate.
Moving too fast to just get
Get
seat
the
filled.
whoever gets in the door. So I had to do like a study of 6 months to prove to the CEO that the lower turnover and the low cost of acquiring talent and how quick we were making decisions was a mistake in the long-term revenue generation of this company. And long-term, it's not even long-term, it's like a year. Do you know what happened? We let go of every clean house in HR. And they had low acquisition cost, low turnover. So these are my three favorite. There's many others, but these are my three favorite because they allow me to go deeper and understand what's happening in the business. A lot of HR people are really proud of low cost of acquisition of talent, but then they have other problems.
Low engagement scores and
They have all these things. Are we hiring the right? I always say, hire slow, fire fast.
Oh, I feel like I've heard that before.
Probably,
That's,
yeah.
hire slow.
Take your time to understand what you
Fire
need, what the other
fast.
person, and that's where we add value. Think about it. HR, teaching people how to really, really interview a candidate and create processes to determine the right fit of a candidate. That's our job. So that candidate can be happy or happier. So there's a higher percentage of success when you hire the candidate. And then you implement a really robust onboarding process where at the 3 months, some people are going to leave the company, and that's okay.
Right. You do need some level of turnover.
Yeah, that's okay.
It's
People
like
leaving the company is okay.
It's like not wanting to lose any hair off your head. It's just not the
Yeah.
way it works.
Yes, but when I go and talk to HR departments, rarely they know. What I hear is I don't have time to measure these things. I'm busy. I'm too busy. I don't have enough resources. It's the only thing I hear. It's almost like a really victimized mentality.
What do you say to coach them? Like, you
Well-
don't have time to not have time. You must have time.
Yeah, but obviously, yes. And I asked them, so tell me about your day. Tell me about a week.
And what did they say?
Well, it's a typical, right? It's like interruptions all day long. How can I work if I have interruptions all day long? It's true. How can you work if you're being interrupted all day long? In a company 6 months ago, this was super easy fix. I was talking to the lowest person in HR, and they all had, from the VP to the lowest person, a team of 8, they all had the same complaint. We get interrupted all day long. I always say when people bring you problems, ask them for the solution. I was actually criticized for that. I asked the junior generalists, what do you think is that? Nobody gave me a good response. Everybody said, well, I don't know. Supervisors suck. We don't have enough people. They want these things. The system fell down and we need to do things manually, blah, 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 blah. All valid. But this person said, I wish we would have office hours.
There you go.
Oh my God.
Yes. I've heard.
Oh my God.
You were coaching me on something earlier. A way you can get them to say this too is, what would it look like for you to not be interrupted all day? To get an answer like that.
Yes. She said, I wish we would have office hours. And honestly, I'm doing this now as part of what I do. I did not think about that. We removed the HR office from the middle of the manufacturing facility, a little bit away, so people could go on their breaks.
And they were in the middle?
Yeah, because that's a way of, I see the value in that, but you have to be so good in closing the door and then doing your walks because I believe that HR needs to talk to people. I get so much when I talk to people. But you can't be talking to people all day, because then when do you do your job? You're going to burn out.
You need time to change the business. You can't be so busy running the business.
Yeah.
You need time in both worlds.
So we instituted office hours. Nobody complained. They were like, oh my God, the employees are going to complain. We moved the office. So now it was after the changing room. So it was in their breaks. They can go to HR. They can also go to HR during work hours. It's not that they can't. We posted the HR because there's no too much communication when you're making changes. People are like, well, we sent an email. Well, nobody knew. We posted in the bathrooms, like, good news. Congratulations. You're welcome to come to HR in these time frames and these days.
This is a better way to serve you with dedicated time. There's
We're
always a way to
happy
position
to
everything.
tell you. It's not like, oh my God, we're so sorry.
We're so busy.
We're not open on Mondays.
Right.
Now, we reorganized this to really give you the level of service. And we did a very simple survey 6 months after, and people were ecstatic. And 50% of the people, it was 48.7% of the people were not. They realized they didn't go to HR. So their productivity improved.
It retrained everyone to maybe even have more time to try and solve
think
their own
about
problems.
Instead of running to HR first,
Yes.
first line of defense.
Yes.
Maybe they can have a small hose and put out the mini fire in that moment by themselves. We were able to create training opportunities for employees to take care, employees and supervisors and managers and directors to take care of their own little employee problems in the line without having to stop the line and run to HR. And then HR typically is not an engineer. You rarely have an engineer or an IT person in HR. HR is, we're people person. But we don't know how to fix a machine if it's broken.
Right.
But if you give them the tools to do it there, because you're not the Band-Aid that's going to say, oh, I hear you. And then you feel better and they feel better for 5 minutes.
Right.
And then in the long run, the business is losing because of you.
Yes, which is not what I know. All of my listeners, that is not what they want deep down, but that's what you're training everyone to do and to treat you.
Then no wonder you don't have a seat at the table. Would you give yourself a seat at the table?
Ooh, that's a good question to ask.
If you're running a business?
That's a good question to ask. And that's a good thing to have in your mind when you're going through those insecure moments in front of your executive. You think, I would give myself a seat at the table, to give yourself some confidence. I love that question. So you talked about interruptions. For those of you in tech, you can set office hours. You can set a Calendly link that's like, I'd love to talk to you. I meet with people on Wednesdays. You need time to run the business. I talk to so many of you, or you need time to change the business. A lot of you just let people jump on your calendar. You need to protect your time a little bit.
You do, and involve the client. You don't see any company changing a product without talking to the client first. So if your product is, my door is open 24/7, my phone, you have my text, my email, Slack, Teams, whatever, and now you're going to change that, use them, and say, hey guys, I haven't been able to create a robust recruiting program that is going to help you in the line. And because my door is open every day, what would serve you better if I do office hours? They told us. The supervisors were ecstatic because now the employees are not going to be running to HR. They asked for training, so there were other things. So there's a process, there's a moment of a little bit more work in that transition. But man, that's a month, 6 weeks, and then you start seeing light at the end of the tunnel. You start really doing the work that you were hired to do, which is not be everybody's friend or psychologist or whatever.
Yeah, right, exactly. And again, this can be applied no matter what industry you're in. We're talking about frontline worker, big manufacturing, pharmaceutical examples, but you guys, it's just like the scale. It's shrink it down to your scale. What would that look like for you? The advice still stands. Also, hearing the story of how a bigger HR team operates and how to win is still helpful for you no matter where you want to take your career. Learning how, like, Southwest Airlines is coming on soon, learning how they run their HR helps you think critically, even in your smaller teams, to think about what could be and how bigger teams operate. So even though we're talking about very niche examples and you're like, oh, I'm not in manufacturing, this is still important for you to hear. And there's a way for you to spin it and apply it to you. What about the HR team of one?
I do want to say that my career, if you go check my LinkedIn, it's been in big, big companies, but not my consulting career. I've done big companies, small companies. Small companies, they have the exact same problems than big companies. So what a big company does, they create smaller HR teams to serve their clients. So at the end of the day, your sphere of influence is in that specific vertical line. So if you work at a data company or IT company, banking, big or small, it doesn't matter. The same shit happens. Mm-hmm. I could not believe how identical the operation is if it's big or small. If it's small, it's actually more visible. If it's small, you have less opportunity to hide. If it's small, you need to even be a better, more robust HR department, a real, truly a business partner who understands. If it's small, you need to partner with your CFO, which scares the shit out of a lot of HR people. That's my best friend, whether I like him or her or not.
Mm-hmm. How have you reframed that? And why do you feel that way? Like how I get what you're saying, that HR doesn't want to report to the CFO or be friends with them because they're the ones that hold the purse strings. So explain why you're saying the opposite.
Okay, so I don't want to report to a CFO because that means that my CEO, whomever's running the company, has reduced HR to whatever number without conversation. Yeah. And now I have to talk to somebody who's stingy in nature. I don't know any CFO that is not stingy. And that's okay. They have a job. Right. But HR doesn't go there. It just does not go there.
The CEO needs to be dialed into the people, or at least have a direct line to.
So I said that before, and I would not take a contract where I have to go with a CFO. Now, I do take contracts, and I've been a CHRO who works with, it's very different, the CFO or the finance person, regardless of the level, right? CFO, because I was a C person, so I work with a C. But if I'm a manager, with a manager of finance assigned to your group, we all have like the finance guy who's assigned to us, the HR, IT. You don't want finance to discredit you. And I've seen finance people are very smart. They're very tuning to the business. They destroy HR people.
So you need to tap into your power of influence.
You need to have conversations with them. Mm-hmm. I have right now a CFO, and I think we became friends. And there's a new HR person there, and he's struggling. He's like, how were you friends with these people? I'm like, dude, go to her with your metrics and say, hey, what do you think about this? Mm-hmm. Get them on your side. Talk numbers to them. There's no CEO that will not support you if you say, I need an extra recruiter because I'm going to reduce your cost per unit by 15%. Mm-hmm. And yes, I'm going to use a headcount here, but I'm going to reduce you, which means that your revenue could improve in this side, in this percentage, which the sales VP or the salesperson is going to be ecstatic that they're going to have more product to sell or services to offer or loans to close, depending on the industry. It doesn't matter.
Right.
So you need to work hand in hand with finance. It's a must.
And full circle, you're going to be uncomfortable. You're going to mess it up. You're going to get flipped to the mat maybe a few times by someone in finance, but you will get better. And if you don't speak up, you won't get the practice. So you have to make yourself uncomfortable.
You know what? It's not that I don't think finance is my enemy, but like keep your enemies closer, that saying.
Yes, yeah.
Because I have had HR people like, finance is the enemy. I'm like, because you're not. You forgot that you're working on the same team. You forgot that it's the same team. You forgot. Mm-hmm. But let's say finance is the enemy, which I don't agree with. Let's say that's what you're thinking. Just keep them closer.
That's so
understand how they think.
Yeah. And you have to ask questions.
It's the only way. Understand how they think. That happens when HR is not talking the business language.
Yep. Which we're going to continue to talk about on the show. It takes time, you guys. Just keep reaching out with your questions. We talked about the metrics here, turnover. We talked a little bit about EBITDA, just generally.
Time to hire, cost of hire.
Mm-hmm. How do you calculate cost of hire?
How much does it cost to acquire a person and make the offer up to that point?
What things would be?
Meaning, if you're using job posting boards, how much are you paying for that? The time of the recruiter, whether it's internal or external. Sometimes we outsource that. How much are you paying for that? So this is cost per hire, yeah. Mm-hmm. Any type of advertisement that you have to have for the job, any type of systems that you have to pay for. Sometimes it's testing, personality testing, your system, ATS, all of that. and the time of the recruiter.
So is this a simple spreadsheet? Because I know some of my listeners are like, I don't know how to get that. It's a spreadsheet. Put in your monthly cost of your tools that affect recruiting, that you use for recruiting. And then from there, you calculate how many people you hired and the overall salary of each person and average it, or like literally how would you calculate?
So the cost of hire from an HR perspective does not include the salary. That's a different metric. It's how much is it costing the organization to acquire one
Just
soul.
to acquire them.
And to acquire them. And this is going to vary by level.
Okay.
An executive is going to be way more expensive than an IT operator, for example.
Right.
But I hear HR departments talking about recruitment is big and it's hard.
It's expensive too.
It's expensive. There you go. You said it. And I hear a lot of in HR, usually that's where people say, if you give me another recruiter, I'll be able to have, more people in the door. And then when I ask, so what's the cost per hire? They're like, I don't know.
Oh, God. Yeah.
But also, we're agreeing here, it is expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Would you agree that it's important to get the
Yes.
right talent in the door?
Yes.
How in the world are you doing that and not you HR, not anybody else, you do not know how much it's costing you to bring a hire?
Right. That's why you can't sleep at night, everybody. That's why you have panic attacks. You all tell me. That's why you have so much anxiety. These are the little things that you need to learn to have data to point to talk to whatever executive or to yourself. This is costing too much. Mari, thank you for your time. We need to wrap this up, but I want to have you on again because there's so much we can discuss about talking the language of the business and revenue. So is there anything you want to leave the guests with before we wrap it up?
Yes. I know we've talked a lot of things here, and maybe you're like, but what are the metrics?
Yeah.
I didn't hear the metrics. Listen, you're my people. Think about the one metric of the three that I discussed today, which is turnover, cost of hire, time to hire, and see how you can, in your own time, associate that to the business or solve a problem if these things get better. And then use that one metric. Don't get bogged down into how many metrics, dashboards, Google, just spreadsheet, simple spreadsheet, Google Sheet, in your phone. It doesn't matter. Speak it to your phone, but start understanding the value of one metric for yourself. Take the next 2 weeks to do that. And that I said before, I was not always this confident, but I had the certainty that I could take action and learn from it, and confidence came. This is your time to improve your confidence just by diving into what is it that I want to accomplish and how would I prefer to impact the business that I'm in.
Love it. Maybe start with the end. We've got this business problem. How could I think about it with data?
Yeah,
I love it. Thank you for coming on, Mari.
absolutely. This was fun.
Good. We'll do it again. All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Bye.